So we do have an update in regards to the man overboard situation, which recently took place on board Carnival's oldest operating ship, the Carnival Elation, currently sailing out of Jacksonville, Florida. I also want to have somewhat of a deeper discussion when it comes to the man overboard topic in general, because there are a lot of people that are curious, making the argument that here in 2023, there seem to be a lot more man overboards of people jumping off cruise ships, falling off cruise ships, whatever you want to call it or however you want to look at it. This past Thursday on July 24th, reports started surfacing not only by media outlets and Facebook and other social media platforms, the Coast Guard was even reporting on this, that a man had allegedly at the time jumped off of a cruise ship. Now, not only that, it has not only been confirmed that this unfortunate passenger did actually intentionally jump off the cruise ship. Of course, they have evidence by CCTV footage or the camera footage on board recording the incident taking place. The Coast Guard would come to know that the passenger had actually unfortunately gone overboard the day prior. To give you a little context and backstory of this whole situation, that way you understand the full scope of things, you had two companions sailing together on a 4-day sailing out of Jacksonville, Florida on board the Carnival Elation, going over to the Bahamas and back. One of those passengers was 30-year-old Jalen Hill. However, on Sunday, which was July 23rd, his other companion realized that Jalen was nowhere to be found. This is something that is somewhat normal on a cruise ship. Usually people break apart. Some people go to the casino, some people go get a drink, some people go watch a movie, some people see his comedian. However, Jalen's companion that he was sailing with thought something was off, so he eventually, after searching himself, asked the crew to go look for him as well. Come to find out, after looking at the camera footage, that he jumped off of the Carnival Elation. At the time of the incident, the Carnival Elation was concluding its cruise and heading back over to Jacksonville, but at the time, it was about 85 miles or so off the coast of Melbourne, Florida. When the Coast Guard caught wind of this, they did deploy units from places like Miami, St. Petersburg, and Clearwater, all over Florida in order to hopefully find Jalen Hill. However, after about 48 hours of searching, the search was unfortunately called off, which is what typically happens between 24 to 48 hours of searching, as they could not find Jalen Hill. Now, of course, situations like this are absolutely tragic and sad. My condolences do go out to the family and loved ones of Jalen Hill, and it does hit me a little bit as well, because this man, Jalen Hill, was 30 years old. I am also 30 years old. I can't imagine what he had to be going through to, according to Carnival and the Coast Guard, intentionally jump off of a cruise ship, thus trying to end his life. This goes, of course, for all man overboard situations, because it does boggle my mind. I sail on cruise ships quite a bit. I have been on a situation where somebody has intentionally jumped off of a cruise ship on several occasions, back when I worked for a Norwegian cruise line, and even earlier this year when I was on a Virgin cruise ship. However, as many of you know, I do report on these types of situations quite a bit. I want to say this year alone, we are talking about maybe a dozen or so cases where we've had a man overboard situation globally. Now, just looking at the numbers, I have told you guys that this can happen on average anywhere between maybe like 24 to 25, 26 times per year. Not uncommon, but it's not common either when it comes to these types of situations. People have kind of theorized maybe a solution to this. However, I will say that when it comes to solutions like maybe putting tall plexiglass on the balconies or something of that nature, it would of course ruin the experience for a lot of people, but at the same time saving lives, meaning a lot of people are probably 50-50 on the matter. There is, of course, the matter of the fact that there are balconies literally everywhere, even off of cruise ships. I've mentioned this plenty of times. You go to a theme park, go to a hotel, you get a balcony, it's going to be around the same height. So what's causing a situation where people think that they jump on a cruise ship, and regardless of what they're going through mentally, which is extremely unfortunate, they believe that jumping in the water in the middle of the night is the way to go. Just to backtrack, there are, in my personal opinion, 3 reasons why people do go overboard on cruise ships. And well, I would put the fact that people are potentially trying to unalive themselves. We can't say the S word, you know what I'm talking about. You also have a situation where people can do something crazy or stupid and accidentally fall off. For example, there are people that sit on balconies. There are people that try to take selfies on balconies. And then the last one, which is the least common, would be somebody trying to, well, of course, take somebody else's life by pushing them over. This is something that is extremely rare, and I believe I've only seen maybe 2 or 3 situations in the past, I want to say like 10 years, if you can Google it, that somebody has intentionally tried to end somebody's life by pushing them overboard. So here's a big question. What has been going on over the past couple years during the pandemic and post-pandemic that we seem to be looking at somewhat of an uptick when it comes to the man overboard situations? Are people really just mentally not okay, even more so than before the pandemic, to the point to where they are deciding to go on a cruise and take their own life? That is a possibility. Is it a situation where maybe now a lot of this is being more documented and talked about, let's say by myself and other media outlets? And well, yeah, that's also a possibility, but all the other media outlets, New York Post and CNN, all these other places had already been there before. So they were already talking about this prior to the pandemic. Maybe it's because, like I said, you do have with the digital revolution, there are a lot more content creators out there, individual media, all of that jazz. So maybe yes, it could be a situation where it is, of course, being talked about more and being put in the spotlight when things like this do occur. Personally, for me, as somebody that has not only worked on cruise ships as crew with multiple lines, as well as between 2022 and 2023, having sailing on dozens of cruise ships, I would argue by the end of this year, probably around the 50 cruise range with multiple lines, as well as having a pretty large network of friends that are also crew that give me all of the information on what's going on in the cruise space. I would say that it is somewhat of a combination of both. It looks like there has been recorded data that has been confirmed that since the pandemic, there has been an uptick on people that are just simply not okay. Some people are suffering from depression and all kinds of other mental illnesses and whatnot. And well, I think in the US, don't quote me on this number, but I think it's like 1 in 5 Americans are suffering through something mentally. And well, this could be the potential situation that we're dealing with now is the reason why we are seeing somewhat of an uptick, combined with the fact that there are more media outlets and independent media and all types of content creators now with TikTok and all these other new platforms popping up out of nowhere, that this topic is just simply being talked about a little bit more than usual. Well, a lot more. So I had an interesting conversation with one of the crew members yesterday, as I typically do on board cruise ships. I am a talker, as many of you know. How I am right here, as you see before you on camera, is pretty much exactly how I am whenever I am in front of people in public. I just love having conversations. I have a lot of conversations with both passengers and crew. Yesterday I was talking to a crew member that typically does the world cruises for Carnival, or the longer sailings. What he explained to me is that yes, as you could imagine, there are older people that will basically spend all of the money they have made in life and their retirement money to go on a world cruise, because it is kind of like their last hurrah in their opinion. They are understanding of this. He says that on the way back to returning home, the problem is you have a lot of people that are on what you would call, well, unalive watch. You know what I mean here, because since they've spent all of their money and they figure it is somewhat the last hurrah and last great moment in their life, you have people that on record decide to go ahead and start taking their own lives as the ship is done heading back over to the port in which it originally sailed out of, thus concluding the vacation of a lifetime for a lot of the older and elderly passengers on board. Now, of course, there are solutions to somewhat mitigate the man overboard situations that are unfortunately taking place. Of course, like I said, the cruise lines could decide to, I guess, make the balconies a little bit higher and put the plexiglass in, like I've seen on other cruise ships. That is indeed a possibility somewhat. However, like I said, it would kind of disturb the overall experience for a lot of people. And I would say that to a certain extent, if somebody's going to go overboard and intentionally do so, they're going to go overboard. It might be a little bit better noticed if you see somebody climbing up a 6 foot tall plexiglass, but more or less they're still going to do it, potentially, that is. I would say the biggest way to help stop all of this is, of course, to check on your friends and family. You as a person, as an individual, you would know more than anybody out there if your loved one is not okay. There are a lot of people that for some reason think that, well, oh, my sister is not doing too well, she's had thoughts of unaliving herself, she's been going to therapy, she just had a divorce or something of that nature, and believe a cruise is the best way to go when they're not feeling well 100%. It is not. I always tell people all the time, be careful who you sail with. Of course, there is like the risk of arguments and stuff, but then at the, I want to say, extreme point, you do have people that do crazy things like this, and it is unfortunate and it's sad. And I do believe that if anybody is going through, let's say, these kind of thoughts, you should of course seek some kind of help. Go talk to your loved ones, go to therapy, do whatever it is that you got to do, but just don't go on a cruise ship, because yes, of course, there are a lot of people that are going to be impacted by this. Not only you as the individual, there's also going to be the passengers on board, your family, and everybody else involved that actually cares about you. Moral of the story, this does need to stop, and I do think that the main stopping point would be the people that are involved with sailing with the people that actually do go overboard. And I'm not saying it is their fault for not mitigating this. I'm saying that they can also play a role in stopping these tragedies from continuing to occur. And I have no shame in saying that I think this is primarily an American issue. I look all over the world about news and what's going on, and I do put out what I think is going to be relevant, which is primarily American news and man overboards that take place on ships that are going out of places like the US over to the Caribbean. But as far as it happening over elsewhere, moral of the story, this does need to stop, and I do think that the main stopping point would be the people that are involved with sailing with the people that actually do go overboard. And I'm not saying it is their fault for not mitigating this. I'm saying that they can also play a role in stopping these tragedies from continuing to occur. I do believe that with the exception of the pandemic, in which there were a lot of crew members worldwide that were not doing so okay mentally and making very disturbing decisions over in the US, it seems like maybe because things are just moving faster in the US and it can be expensive depending on where you are living in the US, and well, there's a lot of pressure over there. You have a lot of people that decide to make these decisions, and it is extremely sad to see. But of course, let me know your thoughts on this, guys, in the comment section below. As usual, hit the like button on your way out. Know that I love each and every one of you, and well, I'll see you later. Take it easy.